Gus felt his life fading away. Not literally, he was physically healthy, but his mental state was slipping. He knew he only got one life, and in that life, he'd never get to experience the feeling of having loving parents again. The feeling of innocence was gone. Toby, on the other hand, couldn't feel anything whatsoever. He just went on autopilot, doing whatever the Novus Ordo Seclorum asked of him. Over the span of a week, he had no idea how many people he had even killed, or why he had done it. Sometimes he would stare at himself in the mirror, holding a gun to his head, unable to cry or pull the trigger. In his and Gus's mind, there was no escaping this situation. Bloodshot was nowhere to be found, and even the police wouldn't likely be of any help. Meanwhile, Mr. Dominus was in deep trouble. He had spent 2 weeks recruiting more Novus Ordo Seclorum members from foreign countries. Like a legendary salesman, he had gotten over 1,000 new members. The Novus Ordo Seclorum was now globalized, and even more resources from foreign countries could now be exported directly to Benko Falls. The anarchists had received word of Mr. Dominus's whereabouts, and they were naturally enemies of the Novus Ordo Seclorum. Order was literally in its name. The anarchists were certainly just as globalized as the Novus Ordo Seclorum, as anarchy was a belief held by some people in just about every country. Mr. Dominus had made his last stop in Japan, and had just successfully recruited more people. He packed his items from his ryokan, a Japanese hotel, and made his way to the airport. He booked 3 tickets on a first-class plane, 1 seat for him, and 2 for his bodyguards. About 14 hours into the flight, Mr. Dominus had fallen asleep, but his bodyguards were wide awake. The plane was just above Great Britain when screams erupted from the economy class of the plane, awakening Mr. Dominus and everybody else in the plane. Mr. Dominus suddenly felt his heart sink into his stomach. As the plane started descending head first, his bodyguards were thrown against the wall of the plane and instantly died. Faint gunshots came from the cockpit as Dominus held onto the seat as his body was being tugged away. He pulled himself up, trying to find a parachute or something to help him escape. There was nothing. Dominus continued to climb down the seats, despite his concerning obesity. He made it to the door of the cockpit. The door swung open, and in the cockpit, there were 4 dead bodies. 2 of them were black-hooded men, and the 2 others were pilots. Dominus grabbed hold of the pilot's seat and sat himself in it. The plane broke through the clouds and the land of Clifton, Ireland came into view. Dominus steered the plane up, causing it to narrowly avoid the city, but now the plane was barreling straight into the Atlantic Ocean. Dominus kicked a hole into the glass of the cockpit and held onto his seat. The plane made contact with the icy water and it flooded with the water of the Atlantic Ocean. Dominus held his breath and swam out the front of the cockpit, kicking his overweight body up. He finally connected to the Irish air, and he looked to the south and saw the great city. The plane was now sinking, and there were no survivors, except for Dominus. He swam to shore, and when he made it, he felt the greatest sense of victory he had ever experienced. Someone had almost certainly tried to kill him, and he beat them. He felt like even the most powerful god couldn't take him down. Mr. Dominus trudged through the city until he came into a bar, where he asked a man for his phone. He made a call, and prepared to stay in Ireland for a while. Gus was eating lunch with Vinny whilst Toby was testing God by playing a singular round of Russian roulette when they were both called into the Communist Club to have a discussion. Vinny, is it okay if I meet up with my friends at the park right now? Gus asked after receiving a text message from a Novus Ordo Seclorum member. Yes. I can drive you, Vinny offered. No. I'll walk. Gus and Toby both went to the club. And there they talked with Sylvester. You two, along with Miss Alia Marie DuPont, will fly by private jet to Ireland, where you will rescue Mr. Dominus immediately, Sylvester announced. Just us? Gus asked. Yes, Sylvester replied. Along with a trained pilot. Why? Okay, Toby said blankly. Gus stared at Toby in confusion, wondering why he was so open to just blindly following orders. I can't just leave. What do I tell my brother? Gus asked. I'll handle that, but your flight leaves in an hour. Mr. Winters will drive you and himself to the jet, and we'll make sure your car is safely taken care of. Toby nodded unenthusiastically, and Gus went along reluctantly. Gus and Alia sat together on the jet as Toby stared out the window, hardly blinking or taking his gaze off of the vast expanse of clouds. God, Ireland. I can't believe this is happening, Gus mumbled to himself. Our great leader needs our help, so we shall, Alia stated. Gus kept trying to catch Toby's gaze, but he wouldn't look back. Gus finally decided to get out of his seat and go sit next to Toby. Toby, Gus whispered. Toby snapped out of his thoughtless trance. When we land, we can kill Alia and the pilot, and we can run away from the Novus Ordo Seclorum. We can start a new life, Gus whispered. We have no money, no passport, and we'll just be killed, Toby responded. I have millions of dollars invested into companies. If I can find out how to withdraw it, we can hide somewhere. They'll never find us. I don't know, Toby said. Gus walked away, disappointed. He went to the bathroom, where he sat for half an hour, just thinking. He remembered everything he had been through. He had been bullied his whole freshman year, almost faced expulsion, and had been kidnapped 3 whole times. First, at the hands of Mr. Walter, then Mr. Dominus, and then Mr. Dominus again. Worst of all, he lost his parents, but at least he had Toby and Vinny. Gus wasn't sure if he could go through any more heartbreak or distress, which was why he needed to end this. He needed to kill Alia, whether or not Toby wanted to. Gus walked back to his seat, pretending to fall asleep as the plane flew over the Atlantic Ocean. He planned and plotted, and when the plane landed in Clifton, Ireland, Gus was ready.